Today, we're going to be talking about sharing and viewing 3D models online with 3D Send, powered by 3D Repo. Quick introductions. My name's Matthew Osment. I'm the head of digital twins and product manager at 3D Repo. And then I'll pass you over to Joseph.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joseph. I'm the founder and CEO of 3D Repo. As Matt mentioned today, it's really the plan to introduce you to 3D Send, but we also want to give you a bit of a background on why we did what we did, the reasoning, the kind of lessons learned for us, and also what we worked on with specific clients, and hopefully also showing you how easy it is to build these kind of solutions in the 3D Repo platform. So Matt, over to you.
Great. So a few bits of housekeeping first. So this session will be recorded. We normally put them up on YouTube, so you'll get a link and you'll be able to share those with any colleagues and skip through to different bits. We also put chapters in so you can get to the bits that interested you. And on GoToWebinar, we do have questions. Sometimes the UI looks a little bit different, but you should see something in the little window that looks something like that. You can type in questions. Anything, we try to answer everyone's questions. We can't necessarily talk about them on the webinar if we don't have time, but we will answer them all in text form anyway. So keep them flooding in, and even if we don't have enough time to talk to answer them, we'll still answer them in the text. So as Joseph mentioned, the agenda today is going to be a brief demo of 3D Send. Then Joseph's going to start to talk about 3D Repo and the evolution of 3D Send and how he got towards this concept. And then I'm going to talk about where 3D Send might go next and how we might tie that back in with 3D Repo, and how we sort of looking to get your feedback on these things. So with that in mind, I'm going to flick over to my browser. So hopefully everyone can see this okay. So this is a live demo, so hopefully nothing goes wrong, but you never know with technology. And the 3D Send is ready to go today, so it's completely free. If you want to use 3D Send, you can log on to 3dsend.com and send a file without any account and no sign up necessary. So I do urge anyone, if anyone does think this is interesting and something they can use, just go ahead and do it after the webinar or even during the webinar, and show your friends and show your colleagues. So the basic premise of 3D Send is that I can type in my email address here to say that I am going to be sending a 3D Send to someone. And for anyone that's used tools like WeTransfer, YouSend, even Dropbox Send, I think it's called, this is fairly familiar. You know, you need to enter your email. You want to send some recipient emails. So in the recipient column over here, I might put in Joseph on there. And I'm going to send it to myself as well, just so that I get the copy of the email and you guys can see what happens on the email receipt. You can send up to up to 10 people on 3D Send, and then we've got a message here. This is pretty much SMS style limits, so we can put in, hey, can you have a look at this? And then attaching my files, I can attach as many files as I want, up to a cumulative limit of 500 megabytes. So I could upload 500 1 megabyte files or one 500 megabyte file, we don't really mind. And the supported formats you can see down here, we support DGN from Bentley products, we support RVT natively, we support IFC, OBJ, and FBX, and then we also support .bim files, which are the 3D Repo files, which you'll be able to get from our plugins with Revit, Navisworks, and then Civils 3D coming soon, and AutoCAD. So here I'm just going to upload these 3 files, which are all essentially the same file but in different formats. I'll open them up, and then you'll see them all in that list, and you can add and delete them, whichever one. So if you accidentally upload something that you didn't want to upload, you can delete it out of there. And then I hit send. And then once those models are uploaded, and hopefully this doesn't take too long. Sometimes these GoToWebinars take up a little bit of my bandwidth, and I'm up and far away from the router, so hopefully that speeds up a little bit. And then what the recipient sees is a window, and once that's sent, I'll go back to my emails to show you how it looks to the recipient. But what you'll get is an email to a URL which has this sort of long UID, which is impossible to guess. It would take a billion years to brute force an attempt to get the right UID. In the same way that WeTransfer does it. You can see the message that I typed out, and then you can see this play button here. So we offer people the option to either download their files so that they can view them in their native software or to play them, because the reason for that is we found that if you're opening up Revit or you're opening up Navisworks, sometimes by the time you've downloaded a model, you've waited for your software to start, you could have been waiting 15 minutes. You might need to install updates and things like that. And sometimes you just need to check the content of the model, make sure that's the thing you're expecting to receive, make sure you've got everything you need. So that's why we've built in the 3D Repo model viewer. So if I hit this play button here, you'll see the model viewer load up. And then it's ready to go with my model. So here I've got a sort of concept for a new building that I might want to send to a client. I might have sent 3 different proposals to this building to the client. And again, that's in Revit format. So I, as the authoring architect, have access to Revit, but maybe my client doesn't, or maybe I'm just not sure whether or not they do. So I want to play it safe. I'll send them the models in 3D Send. If they want to open them up in Revit, they can just hit the download button, and it will just download. You can see there my download icon going along. Oh, there we go. And it downloads to my local, and I can open it up in Revit. So that's basically how 3D Send works. So I'll check back in on my original send there. So you can see that now that that's taken a little bit of time to send that, those have been uploaded. And it says, once my files are ready, they'll send me an email. So we've got an upload completed. So that was sent to me because I was the initiator of the send. So my models have been uploaded. I get a little email and I get the link to 3D Send. Now my recipients will get an email that say, Matthew.Osment has sent you some 3D files. Would you like to view them online? And when I click that, I immediately go to the website. So at the moment, our files are processing. That usually takes about 1 to 5 minutes for models of this size. You can see actually that one's just finished processing. So that means that the 3D Repo backend has done all the hard work crunching it to make it a smooth model viewing experience in the browser. And now I'll run through a few examples of how you might like to use 3D Send for different applications. The other thing I should mention, sorry, is that while they're processing, you can still download them. So the moment you send, everything is available to download. It just takes a few minutes to just process it for the viewing in the browser.
Matt, I'm just monitoring. Sorry, I'm monitoring questions, and one thing you mentioned is that it is currently free. Is it going to be free forever?
Yeah, so at the moment, 3D Send is free for all users. We plan on always keeping that free tier. So the 500 megabyte limit. At the moment, all your files will be removed in 14 days. That is as part of the free tier, and also it's a security measure so that you don't have these lingering URLs that can access your data. But we will be providing a paid service, but with the intent that the free service always remains. So there will always be an introductory version in the same way we do with 3D Repo. If you log on to 3drepo.com, you'll be able to sign up for an account with some limitations on model size and collaborator numbers, but you can still use every single feature of 3D Repo. So onto the use cases. For this example, I'm going to jump onto BIM Object. For any architects out there, you might know what BIM Object is. It's sort of a store where suppliers can upload models of designs or things that they might want you to add to your BIM model. So if you're designing a kitchen in this instance, you could download a kitchen model from BIM Object and insert it into your model to save you having to download it, to develop it. So what I've done here in the past is I downloaded a few of these kitchen models, and then I pushed them in RVT format back up to 3D Send. So now they're sitting there. I could send that to my client. I could send it to my colleague or my partner to say, hey, how do you like this kitchen? What about that one? We can move it around. What about that layout? Which layout do you prefer? And I've got that message there in the chat. And then obviously once someone's happy with the one that they prefer, they can always download it and integrate it straight into their Revit files. So if you want to send someone a full library of parts from BIM Object, you could send them 100 files, whichever one they decide they like, they just download and import into their Revit instance. The next example I want to show you is how we work with our Navisworks plugin. So here I've got a structural model, and I've highlighted certain elements in red. So the reason I've done this is because we believe at 3D Repo that BIM models are only part of the process, and actually a lot of it comes from the context that you can add to 3D models. So in this instance, I've opened up my structural model in Navisworks, and I've got ahead and selected a few things and highlighted them red. So if I wanted to select a few other components, and then I just need to make sure I've got my window, oh, wrong button. I just need to make sure I've got my selection tree window. Oh, where's it gone? Up. So I can select those, I can override the color and then maybe turn those green. So now those elements are green. And then if I open up my 3D Repo plugin, which is available from the Autodesk App Store and also 3drepo.com on our downloads page, I can export this to a .bim file. And then when I then download that, so I just fill in this form here, which is a pretty standard export file form. When I then upload that to 3D Send, I get all those color overrides included. So I could start to ask questions of clients or communicate ideas to colleagues that don't necessarily require them to even download the file, but allows them to sort of understand exactly what I'm getting at. And Jozef's going to go into a bit of detail later about why we've decided to do this sort of thing with 3D Send, why we've decided to position it here. And a lot of it's to do with kind of breaking down a few of the barriers. You know, if I want to send someone a PDF, I can just send it in an email. Whereas if I want to send them a BIM model, I don't really have that capability because there's so many different formats. So we're really trying to sort of work at that area and try and make 3D models kind of as useful and as exchangeable as PDF documents. The final thing I want to show you.
Sorry, we've got more questions coming through. So can it be linked to your existing 3D Repo account? That's the first one.
At the moment, it can't because these are this is what we call a minimum viable product, and I'll go into a few more details about the lean concepts of development and how we've ended up here. But these are very much, these are models that exist. We've used our APIs. They exist in the same architecture as 3D Repo. They are sitting on 3D Repo, so it's only a small development on our end to try and figure out a way for users to move those models either into their 3D Repo account or produce a 3D Send web page from a 3D Repo, an existing 3D Repo model. So that's something we think is really powerful as well.
And another question, someone noticed in the welcome page, there are some file formats listed. So which file formats do we support?
Yeah, so it's, I'll run back because I always forget a few of them. So it's all the same as 3D Repo. So we've got DGN, Revit files, IFC, OBJ, and FBX, which are sort of more visualization industry standards, .bim, which is our own custom standard that works with our plugins, and there's a few more, and you can access them on, you can access the list on 3drepo.com, all the same file formats that work with 3D Repo. So if I switch back to this this model here, you can see this rather large architectural model. The other benefit of 3D Send, because we've built it on top of 3D Repo, is that any model, any of those huge models that you're working with in 3D Repo, they'll also work in 3D Send. So even if you've got a skyscraper with MEP, as long as it loads in 3D Repo, it will load in 3D Send. So, and if you do happen to send us a file that is so complicated it fails some aspect of rendering in the browser because it's got 100 million screws or something in it, we will still offer that as a download for the end user. So the workflow isn't disrupted, they'll still be able to download it. So now I've done that quick demo, I want to just quickly flick back to my slides before I go to Jozef and sort of talk about how we've built 3D Send and where we're coming at it from a sort of lean principles point of view. So lean principles is a kind of modern concept in software engineering and something that we don't think we really see enough of in the construction industry. A lot of the big software tools in the construction industry are kind of behemoths and they've been around for 10 years. They've taken a lot of development time and maybe they serve a very particular purpose. But I think that comes at what we've lost is that ability to create quick tools that solve quick problems that we then build out to fully fledged solutions. So what lean principles really looks at is eliminating waste. So basically don't develop things that no one's going to use anyway. Build quality in by targeting, you know, very specific features up front and making sure they work perfectly. Create knowledge with the user base. So that's things like creating this webinar to try and get it out there that, you know, 3D Send is a work in progress. And what we're planning to do, whilst we've built a end-to-end workflow now, we think that there's a lot of potential in this product and we really want to push it to users to start to get feedback. Deferring commitment always sounds a little bit negative when I introduce people to lean principles, but what deferring commitment means is don't promise people the world and then disappoint them over a 5-year period whilst we take our time to deliver it. What we're saying is we've built something that works, we've built something we think is good, we've delivered it fast, which is the next principle, and we're going to continue to commit to you over the course of time about developing this product out. Respecting people and optimizing the whole is about saying, you know, your time is worthwhile. We want to bring you to the 3D Repo family of products because you've got a task to complete, and we think that we are the best placed to help you complete that task. You know, we won't bog you down with menu options and lots of features that are maybe there from legacy builds and things like that. We want to give you the best. So on to a little bit of discussion around what a minimum viable product is. And how 3D Send got to where it is, because we built 3D Send over the course of around an 8-week sprint using the 3D Repo APIs, which Jozef will go into in a bit. And the goal of a minimum viable product in software terms is to build something over time which is always useful. So rather than building a car, for instance, in this example, in pieces, which is not useful until you get to the fully fledged car, what we do with our software development process is we first of all build you a means of transport that will get you from A to B, and then we slowly and incrementally increase until we get to the sports car that you really want. So that's why I want to sort of mention this process, because we really want your feedback for 3D Send, and we think it's really important to shape the development of the product. And we want you to know that just because a feature isn't in 3D Repo right now, that's not because we haven't considered it, but it's just because we wanted to get the product out to as many people as we could straight away for free, and then work with you guys to make it better. So I will now hand over to Jozef, who's going to present his screen, hopefully. Jozef?
Yep, before we do that, one more question. This is a difficult one, so I'll pass it on to you. You showed 3D models. What about the BIM data?
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. So we have had some feedback from that already. So obviously we understand that the BIM data is a key aspect of BIM models. You know, models don't just exist as a visual. They also exist as metadata and text and, you know, links to other data sets elsewhere. So one of the things on our roadmap, which I'll show you at the end, is to include that metadata that we already have on 3D Repo. So it's just a UI component that we need to add, but we need to understand whether that's a priority for people or whether that's something that they can hold out for. So again, if that's a priority for you, get in contact with us, tell us, and we'll build it into the product. Okay, that's good.
Okay, here we go. So thank you very much, Matt, for the intro. In terms of the next steps, what we basically wanted to discuss and describe is how we went about building it, and also the reasonings of the motivation behind building such a solution and where it sits alongside the main 3D Repo platform and everything we have around it. So just to give you a very brief intro, for those who don't know, 3D Repo is a design coordination platform for BIM models. And what you see here is an example of our tool called Safety Base. So this runs on the web browser. You can share your complicated BIM models. And in this particular case, you can actually create health and safety risk issues. So you might be able to see there is a crawler and the railing next to it is not high enough. So operator coming out of them might fall over. And if you see an issue like that, you can just mark it up and hopefully try to mitigate the health and safety risk before you can go to site. So you can try to design it out of the model. Now, this is only one of many features and tools we have built in 3D Repo, but the common underlying theme there is that we can run it on the web browser. You can see we can push these very heavy 3D models, and we can build solutions on top. So taking the next step, basically we have an online platform which consumes all of these different file formats, and then we expose APIs. So some of these tools we build ourselves, and many other tools have been built by our partners, and we've got integrations into Aside, OpenText. We can now do 4D playback using imports from Synchro and so on and so forth. And the most interesting part of it is that every single button and every single tool that we build for ourselves, we give access to other people as well. So that's through our APIs. So we have a server API as well as the viewer API. So with the server API, you get access to all of the data, all of the 3D models, all of the BIM metadata and all the functionality of 3D Repo on the server. With the viewer, what you see here on the right-hand side is you can actually take our viewer, embed it in your own website, and then build custom user interfaces on top. And that is exactly what we have done with 3D Send as well. So we've taken the viewer, the power of being able to show these 3D models on the web browser, and we build a custom workflow around it. So the data, what Matt was showing when you upload the 3D model, that actually goes through our server API, and it utilizes all the processing of the power of the platform. So back to the question of what about the BIM metadata? We actually process it already. So it goes through the same pipeline as the rest of the 3D Repo. We just don't have the user interface to show it on 3D Send yet. However, on 3D Repo IO, you get the same power, the same functionality there already. And here is an example of what the API documentation looks like. As I mentioned, there is everything you can possibly do with 3D Repo, including assigning user permissions, changing your avatars, and every single piece of functionality there is. And just to show you some examples of what is possible with these kind of APIs, here is a project we are working on with our project partners, including Mission Room, Medifile, Imperial College, UCL, and MACE for AEC production control rooms. So once again, pulling all of the data through APIs, linking it to Microsoft Power BI, building custom dashboards for management of projects, being able to do 4D playback, have the live 3D models there, and really get information about the project at their fingertips. Really trying to democratize access to the project, to the data, so that anyone working there have instant visibility of where the project is, what the progress is, how far off they are from where they want it to be, and so on. So that is really the power of the APIs that we provide. And in terms of the motivation, this was a quite interesting journey for us, because early last year we joined the Civic Innovation Challenge, which was a competition run by the Mayor's Office in London. And they posed an interesting problem. They said that they do a lot of these planning submissions and public consultations, but for majority of people, it's very difficult to follow. They are presented with walls of text. They might be given some 2D drawings or schematics, which many people don't fully understand. And they posed a challenge, asking us whether we can do something better. So we joined the Innovation Challenge. We proposed a solution. We call it Plan-Based. Once again, utilizing the APIs that we have in the digital platform that we built, and build a custom user interface for specific workflow. In this case, trying to get 3D models, whether they come from free sources, or even if you purchase ready-made visualizations of London from the likes of AccuCities, for instance, you can run it through the platform of 3D Repo and then provide a custom user interface to the public. So we won the competition. You can see us grinning there with Theo Blackwell and Peter Kemp from the Mayor's Office, and we built the interface. So this was the end result. Custom solution, which once again utilizes our embeddable viewer, and it has a thin layer of varnish on top where people can go through the proposal, they can post their own comments, feedback, and it utilizes the same platform. But the interesting twist here is that it's publicly facing, which then got us thinking that actually there is serious demand for this, and we've seen it through a lot of our clients, having the very easy and convenient way to share data, whether it's with their colleagues, whether it's with their clients, something that you can just have a web link, you can send it off, and people can have instant view and visibility of what is being discussed without having the need to install any software, without having the need to create username and passwords and so on. So that was the kind of behind the scenes motivations for us. This is where the whole idea and the concept of 3D Send came to. Basically using these same platform, the same underlying infrastructure, using our embeddable viewer and the power of the APIs to create a custom interface. So exactly as Matt has shown you, you go on the website, you provide your email addresses, you start uploading the file, and it's very easy to then get access for other people. You receive the email, and the recipient, all they need to do is just click the link, and off they go. They are greeted with the message that you send them. They click on the model, they load the viewer, and they can see the 3D model. So much more simple, smoother experience, and you still have the entire underlying power of 3D Repo platform with all of the 3D rendering capabilities, all of the optimizations, the same file processing capability and everything else at your fingertips. So obviously there is this bright future for 3D Send, and we are working on improvements and iterations and adding more features. So one of the things we are concentrating on right now is making the experience even simpler, even smoother, and hopefully prettier as well. So here's some sneak preview of where we are heading next in terms of the design language, the functionality, and really trying to simplify the experience to bare minimal, just concentrating on the 3D model that you are receiving without having any kind of distracting elements around that. And the idea is that you can then use this and share data and information with your clients that might not have any experience with 3D models. Certainly they wouldn't know how to open something like Revit or Tekla, but they will be able to receive the data, look at it, and then basically be able to comment back and give you feedback. And then you can be really easily, quickly iterate, whether it's with your clients, colleagues, and so on. Which then brings us to the kind of other features and future what we want to add into this, which I'll pass back over to Matt.
So onto the roadmap, again, in the spirit of lean development, you know, we want to be quite open with where we want to go with this, how we want to bring it back and integrate it back into 3D Repo. So one thing we want to do is add password protection for paid accounts. Well, first of all, we want to add paid accounts. We want to allow model federation. So if you send multiple models, they can be federated into the same area live so that the user can then say, I want this model and this model to be shown together. We really want to entrench that link through to 3D Repo because we get a lot of feedback on 3D Repo. And it's part of the reason why we went down this road, as Joseph mentioned before, is that a lot of people in 3D Repo say, well, I've got this model, I want to share it with my client who doesn't want to have to sign up to 3D Repo, or I want to share it with actually a very specific use case is stakeholder engagement. How do I engage with the public on a project when the best tool I have is this 3D model that shows everything all in one place, and yet there is no meaningful way for me to share it with my to do stakeholder engagement with it. So that's a real reason why we want to bring this back into 3D Repo. We want to create an embedded experience. We think that the 3D model viewer of 3D Repo is one of our best assets. So we don't see why we shouldn't allow you to just use that 3D model viewer wherever you want. You know, if you're writing a document on Coda or Google Docs or even Word, why can't you just embed a 3D model into that? We want to add the metadata in, which we talked about before. And then the administration will tie back into 3D Repo as well. So we really want to push 3D Repo as a place where all your models live, and then 3D Send is merely just an outlet to publish those to other people. And then feedback. So again, not to bang on this drum too much, but the lean principles really apply here. You know, we want to find out what our users want. We want to find out how they work, because we make assumptions, and some of those assumptions are based off my time in industry or our partners' times in industry. Some of them are based off user feedback, but the ways of working change. And if there's a shift in ways of working, we want to understand it because we want to tailor our products to that. And we also want to understand what people are willing to pay for, because at the end of the day, this is a commercial endeavor. We do need to pay our bills and keep the heating on. But we want to make sure that we're striking the right price. So please get in contact with us at support@3drepo.com. We're also, everyone at 3D Repo, I'm pretty sure, is available on LinkedIn. So please add us to your networks on LinkedIn, message us on LinkedIn, send us emails to support@3drepo. We really want to engage with people because we feel that that is something we can add to the industry that you're maybe not getting from some of the bigger companies. And we feel that there's a lot of innovation that can be done with minimal input, basically. So again, get that feedback on the support@3drepo.com. And that's everything. So let's check the question.
One feedback question for you.
Yeah.
Does 3D Send support multiple views of an uploaded model as defined in RVT?
It doesn't at the minute. We take the default 3D view or a view that's called 3D Repo, because one of the problems with RVT files is that there are many, you know, accepting an RVT file is actually a little bit of a complicated arrangement because you could have multiple views in there. But I don't think that's something that's precluded from their API. So again, something we could look at doing, so that you could basically author your, I guess the intent there, and question asker, correct me if I'm wrong, would be to sort of author an experience in Revit and then publish that experience to the wider audience, which is a very good, it's a good idea.
It's an interesting concept, right? Because ultimately we would want to have a plugin where you are in Revit and whatever you're saying, you just press a button, off it goes to whoever you need to send it to. The idea of having multiple views, which each kind of goes into the storytelling narration, right? Where we can lead people through the model, especially if you have a client who is not necessarily experienced in navigating in 3D space. Just having these kind of predefined preset views could be another way of doing it. But yeah, at the moment with RVT files, even on the main platform, you have to specify your specific 3D repo view, or we take the default one, which is the easiest way to process. But it's definitely something to consider. It sounds interesting. Another question, missed the start of the webinar. Will we be sending out the recording, please? Yes, we will. We also post them on YouTube, and they'll be recording at the end to download.
And then I think the other one here, a roadmap question. Any plans to integrate drawings into the model space, kind of hypermodel? That is something we are actively working on at 3D Repo at the moment, bringing drawings in both as flat images, but also as interactive lines in the model. There are complexities to that, if I'm honest, from a product management point of view, but we're working on it, and we're hoping first half of 2021 we'll have that in 3D Repo, which I guess using our plugins would then work. There's no reason why that wouldn't then work in 3D Send.
Interesting one. Based on what Matthew has just said regarding Revit, does he suggest the Revit model is stripped down to no views and sheets, etc., and just have one 3D repo view?
No, you sorry, Joseph, I'll let you go to that one if you want.
No, go on. I don't like Revit, so you go on.
No, you keep all of your views, everything in your model is intact. We just ask that it's more for clarity. You know, we take the 3D view if it's there, but for clarity, it's often easier to just say, if you identify a 3D repo view, then we know that we're presenting what you're expecting us to present. But you keep everything else intact.
Did we answer this one about the ability to curate the viewing experience at the authoring stage?
I guess a little bit with the Revit tools, and that's, I guess, without, you know, obviously one of the perils of product management is you start promising things on a public webinar and then people start coming back to you later about it. But the interesting thing about plan-based, which Joseph mentioned before, was that took predefined 3D repo views and published them as a stakeholder engagement set of views. So it used all of our existing infrastructure. So there's nothing to stop us going forward of sort of reproducing that in 3D Sense. Maybe that's something we'll look at, or as part of a public link sharing with 3D Repo. But yeah, because I do think that there's a lot of scope for things like site inductions, stakeholder engagement, client engagement, even 3-week look aheads and things like that. We do have 4D in 3D Repo, so that you can play through construction processes in 3D Repo, but it would also be quite nice to be able to sort of, you know, take someone's camera to that position and say, look at that, that's what you're doing tomorrow.
Matt, but it's an interesting philosophical question from my point of view, because we could be adding all of these features in, and my only worry is that at some point we just recreate all 3D Repo IO, which already exists, but we then miss the point of having this extremely super simple interface that anyone can just pick up and use, especially if they have no prior experience of any BIM related things. So I think it's a balancing act, because people ask about BIM metadata, which we do have in the system, we just haven't exposed it on this particular interface. Same about the storytelling and the pre-saved views. People are asking about markups and being able to provide feedback. So there is a potential that we might break it into separate tools, because ultimately the question is whether we need all of these in one single interface, or whether it's easier to provide certain aspects for specific users. So it's on the receiving end is then easier to digest and comprehend what's going on.
And I think it's really interesting to have 3D Send as this launch point, because a lot of the feedback we're seeing here and a lot of feedback that we've seen elsewhere is that there's a lot of use cases for BIM models which are just not being satisfied by a lot of existing tools, and won't be, because that's not the direction that those tools are going in. So I think that it's really opened up the conversation around what BIM can be and how we can proliferate it in the industry. But I agree with you, Joseph. We need to be mindful that we don't just reproduce, because at the end of the day, 3D Send is a standalone product that we're pitching. We want to build this stuff into 3D Repo. We want 3D Repo. 3D Repo is our product, and that's our flagship, and that will always be our flagship. So we'll try and push these lessons learned back into that as well.
But the lesson learned for us, which is quite interesting, is obviously the ease of use and the usability aspects, but also the fact that 3D Repo is a platform, and we built 3D Send using the very same APIs that we give other people to play with. And there is a lot of integrations that other companies, including the likes of Mods and Atkins and Adobe and others, have built on top. So we are very excited to see these kind of developments, and then we will want to push further and develop other tools. And we are excited also for you guys to contribute and see if you can utilize some of this functionality and build your own custom workflows and tools for others to share. So I think that's where we see the future, really.
I guess that's probably a good point to end on, is that anyone could have taken our tool set and built 3D Send themselves if they wanted to. That's what's really interesting about this. Nothing about 3D Send required us to be 3D Repo. It could have been, if you're a big consultant and you want to build your own custom tools using the 3D Repo engine and workflows, you can do that using our APIs.